as Pasha said initially, let's hear the word from God. Very intimidating when you put it, like not the word from David, it is the word from God. And, you're put into that spot of, all right, I have the word from God that I have to say. So, in all seriousness, I'm a do my best. God help me to deliver His word accurately and for our edification, nourishment. I'll try not to use big words. I use big words when I'm nervous. Let's say. All right. So, Beatitudes. We just finished our series, our segment on Beatitudes. That is the Sermon on the Mount. And we are going to continue going forward. We have completed 12 verses in 8 days. And that's pretty fast for me, an average of a verse and a half. But I'm preaching on 4 verses today, so strap in. I don't want to give anybody whiplash. I hope we can all keep up with the pace we're setting. And, that's the coming weeks also around 4 verses. I'm joking, of course. I don't mean to say that we're going too slow with our 1 verse per sermon, because there was a lot of meaningful and important stuff we needed to say. We really wanted to dig into what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a blessed person. Why? Because we need to know how we live fulfilled and effective lives in the world, not just living a day at a time, not waiting for time to pass by, but how to live a life with true happiness, with true blessings. But I briefly summarized these Beatitudes, and I summarized it like this. If anything, you guys can correct me afterwards, please. But this is what I wrote. We are broken and humbled by our lack of goodness. This leads us to seek God's grace for ourselves, for the sin that we committed, and we do that. We also provide that grace to others, being merciful to others. We are purified by God daily, and through that purification, we are then at peace with God, and we are at peace within us. Having obtained that peace, we then seek to have other people share in that peace with us. So we go out and we share the good news. We try to make people find that peace that we have through the Word. Arthur pointed this out very well. I remember this. Peace, trying to be a peacemaker doesn't mean it'll be peaceful. We oftentimes will encounter resistance, which leads us into the last beatitude, which is, blessed are those who are persecuted, insulted, and there's this escalation. First there's this insulting, misunderstanding, looking down upon, to full-on hatred, full-on rejection, and evil deeds done against you. This is how the Beatitudes ends. And we can say, well, if the, blessed are the persecuted, it just ends, blessed are you guys that suffer, and Jesus ends his message there. We can say, is like, what is the point of just leaving us here to suffer? What is the point of all these previous blessings if it just leads to suffering? But it doesn't end there. It continues on right into my message. So I will be preaching on Matthew 5:13 to 16. So follow along as I read the text. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill can't be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So, these texts, I actually run a Bible study, so, all the people, all the believers that are looking for a Bible study, please join me. This is my favorite part of a sermon, just breaking down a text. I am comfortable with it, so please approach me. I would love to study the Word with you guys. And here's a sample of kind of what we do. So, starting from the top, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. So, salt. Why is Jesus calling us salt? Does he want us to be salty? Our modern connotation is like, oh yeah, you're salty, you're bitter, kind of that vein of negative connotation. But during this time, salt is a very useful and a very valuable thing that they have. People could be paid with salt. It was a very valuable trade commodity because, well, it's hard. You have to dig it up out of the ground. Why is it useful? Well, it is very useful as a preservative and an antiseptic. And those are the aspects that I'm going to focus on in my sermon. A lot of other commentators have commented on it being, Jesus wants us to be the flavor of salt, or the color of salt, or the destructive or painful properties of salt in the wounds. I'm not that kind of preacher, so I won't focus on those aspects. But the focus is on the preservative and the healing aspects of it. Moving on. But if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? Nowadays we can say, what is this guy talking about? I have salt, and every time I taste it, it tastes like salt. That is not an accident. Salt is salty always for us because it is pure salt. We have very nice purification methods for salt, so our salt does not become tasteless over time. Back in the day, they didn't have those same methods, so they dug it up out of the ground, and it was still mixed with its minerals, and over time, it seems that their salt would lose its flavor. It would lose its effectiveness, at least, as a preservative. Salty again. It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. So, what would they do with the salt that did lose its taste? Well, you're not going to eat it. You're not going to use it. What can you do? You can throw it onto the road, so not on anything growing, because that would kill the growing stuff. You would throw it onto the road where nothing grows, and people would just walk on it. It would become like dust. that's, he's saying that's all it's good for. There's literally one use for it, one place it can be without it being destructive. What is this verse about? We see that salt is a good thing. I think we like salt today. We still use it, so it obviously has held up over time. But we come from a background of using salt as preservatives. So this isn't a foreign concept for us. Nowadays there's refrigeration. We don't use salt as much. We put stuff in the fridge. We don't have to pack it all in with salt. But we come from a Slavic culture where they would pickle stuff, right? Pickling, you use salt, and they would pack it in, or I think your parents still pickle stuff. I don't know. Am I the only one? Am I the weird one? They pickle everything. They pickle watermelon. They pickle tomatoes. You hear pickle and you think pickles, right? No. Apparently you can pickle anything, and that's what they did. And during that day, that's what they do with everything. They would pickle, especially. They would pickle. They would salt. They would salt meats and produce like that. For what purpose? To preserve it from decay. So without salted meat, fresh meat, it goes bad really quickly. And we can see Jesus' kind of perspective when talking about this. He's looking at this world that is full of corruption and decay, that's getting worse and worse over time. And his wish for the blessed people, the followers of him, is to be salt for this world. It is to preserve the world that is corrupting, that is falling apart. If you guys want to dispute this, I want to just point you guys, optimists out there, to Genesis 3:16. Cursed is the ground because of you. So in response to the sin that we commit and that our forefather Adam committed, the world is cursed with the corruption and death as resulting from sin. And this is hard for us to watch. We see it every day. We see it with society. We see it with countries. We see it in people's lives. We see it in relationships with the people we talk to, with the jobs we have, and everybody we come in contact with that doesn't have this faith that is in us. We see that they are struggling. They are struggling against this thing that they can't pinpoint. They have this decay within them, these corruption that has resulted from their sin, and they do not have the salt to solve it. If we are not being salt for them. And our purpose is to be salt for them. Our purpose is to bring a stop to that decay, that falling apart that is happening in their lives through our presence in their lives. First off, I liked today's sermon by Albert. He was talking, basically set me up for this sermon. I don't know how God works in mysterious ways, but he talked about being initially a light to people in our lives, to being an example, and then that leading to opportunities to speak to them. I don't want that to be kind of our excuse. A lot of people take that as an excuse, like, oh, I'll just live like this believer, this wonderful believer, and they'll figure it out. They will be blessed by that without me saying anything. But that is Christ's perspective on calling us salt. But moving on a little bit. You are the light of the world. So, by saying this, Christ is saying that the world is in darkness. There is no other light. You know, we are used to the sun being an object of light for us. But in this example, we are to be the sun in the world. We are to be the light, lighting the way for the world. And what is the purpose of light? Well, it is to reveal the things that people need to see, right? It is to make things visible and to remove darkness. That is the purpose of light. And in the same way, that is the purpose of our spiritual light. It is for us to be light, is for us to highlight the truth of God for others and to remove the darkness of people's sin. So expose their sin for what it is. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. So, why does he say this? Israel is full of big hills, mountains, and as a practical thing, they would do is they would build cities on top of those hills. You know, it's a safe place. But the purpose of him isn't to say, oh, you are this stronghold on a city, but is to point out that a city on a hill, it cannot hide itself. It is visible to all that are around it. Everybody below living their common lives in the valley, they constantly can look up at the city and they can see the progress going on there. So if a city is doing good, if it's prospering, they'll see that when they look up. And if it is in chaos, they'll see that as well when they look up. So Jesus reminds us that we are a city on the hill. We cannot be hidden, and we should not be hidden, which goes into verse 15. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket. Pretty self-explanatory. Well, I mean, we don't use candles anymore, so we don't really, think about this too much. But I think it's pretty common sense. Baskets don't belong on top of candles, or maybe they do, but no, they don't. They don't. Absolutely not, because that eliminates the whole point of a candle or a source of light. If we turn on a flashlight, right? If we, for example, use our phone as a flashlight, we don't immediately cover it up and just like, well, we're lighting the way. No, that would eliminate the whole point. That is what he is saying. The whole point of you being a Christian, of God lighting you, is not for you to be stuck under a rock or stuck, in your home, or stuck under, actually it's pretty bright back in the balcony and there's less people sitting there, so I won't pick on you guys. But not stuck in a dark corner. That is not the purpose of you being a believer. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. So we as Christians should not only be lit and just uncovered somewhere in the corner of the room, but on a lampstand. So we should be visible. We should proclaim our belief in God. We should be open about our faith. I'm not saying, you come up to everybody you meet and say, hey, I'm David Shirokov. I'm a Christian. Nice to meet you. You don't have to be awkward about it, but it should be visible. It should be not something that is hidden, especially. We'll get into it a little bit, but it should. Our lives can hide the faith that is inside us, and I'll talk about the reasons why that happens a little bit later. But typically, we are the ones that do not want to be light. It's not that God didn't put us on a lampstand, or God forgot to light us, or God, left us off for the moment. It is on us, right? He says, you are the light, and you should light the way. Give light to shine to all who are in the house. So everyone who is in the house, what is he saying? Everyone that can come into contact with us, right? Not to just one person carrying a light around, but it is to everyone in the house, everyone that can experience our light, we should be giving our light to. And for what reason? Verse 16, let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So the point is not for us to be cheery and bubbly for everybody and make great friends everywhere we go. I'm not trying to destroy you introverts and be like, man, you guys are not being friendly with everybody. Shame on you. No, that's not the point. The point is for us to shine a light, to be constructive with our words and in our deeds, so that we bring glory to God through them finding out, or through our telling them of God and the gospel. We don't know what word or what deed will have an effect in people's lives. I don't know how you guys remember your kind of conversion story, but typically you don't become a Christian overnight. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of people that have an effect in your heart, and it's through little things, little actions, and little examples of their faith in God, through their passion for the Lord, and it actually playing out in their lives. But the point is, we live for Christ And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of us being blessed. That's the whole point of our lives, where we find our fulfillment is in God receiving glory. So, that's a little breakdown on the verses, and kind of goes into my main call, my main point. We see that we are blessed if we follow these Beatitudes, and we see that the purpose of our suffering, the purpose of our blessedness, is for us to bring people to God. There's a reason that, like, when we become believers, God isn't like, all right, he's going to heaven, come right in. I saved you, you're ready to go. It is to bless others with the same blessing that we have received. It is to be the salt and the light for a lost, decaying, and dark world. But we don't. We don't give light, and we're not salt for people. And I apologize. I have to first, I repent publicly. I often am not a light for a lot of you guys. I participate in perhaps inappropriate conversations with some of you guys, or the actions that I take are selfish or ungodly, and that is on me. I apologize. And my point of saying this is I understand it is not easy to fulfill the call that God has given us. It is not easy to be a light, and it is not easy to be salt. And there's a couple excuses or reasons we are not salt. First is uncertainty. We do not have faith that we can be effective light and salt. I know, especially, as young believers, we say, well, how am I supposed to share the gospel? How am I supposed to share God's word with somebody? And we have this uncertainty, or we lack faith or commitment to sharing, or we even sometimes say, hey, I am not salty enough yet. I have just been lit. I am not bright enough yet. I will eventually grow into the salt and light that God needs me to be. But we don't. We end up procrastinating with our holiness. We put off being salt and light for immature reasons, because we rather let other people handle it, and we see that, we are called to be missionaries, like today, Moldova, and I don't know how many of you guys seriously thought about it, like, oh, should I go? Many of you guys were probably just like, yes, those missionaries that go to Moldova, good on them, and you didn't give it any serious consideration. And I understand, not everybody's called to be a missionary to Moldova, but there is plenty of other places we need to be missionaries to, and you just because you're not a missionary to Moldova or Ukraine or Mexico does not mean God has excused you or not called you to be a light and a missionary everywhere else or in another place. All right, so, another reason that we kind of procrastinate with our holiness or with growing to being light is we can enjoy the darkness. We can enjoy being under that basket, because if we can just blend in with the crowd, if we can blend in with our coworkers, we can talk like them, and we can have the same interests, and just not poke anybody the wrong way, then we can get by in life, and we can even have what seems like more casual acquaintances. We can keep everything down low and chill. We don't have to worry about them looking at our lives. We don't have to constantly be aware that, hey, they know I'm a Christian, and that means I have to act like one. I have to admit, Christian bumper stickers terrify me. It is, for me personally, I'm terrified of putting one on my car, because that means when I drive past somebody, that's an advertisement, like, hey, that's a Christian right there. And maybe it's me. I need to work towards that and just go through with it, put it on, and now I have to drive like a Christian, be like a Christian on the roads. Maybe. But yeah. So we can enjoy that basket. We can enjoy that. Put us in a basket. We'll shine to the basket, and we'll have that light within us, and nobody else needs to see it. But that is a sin. That is bad for us to be okay with not sharing our faith, not being a light to others, not talking to people like a believer, not acting like a believer before others in our work, in our studies, whatever we do. And the last thing, it is actually not being lit. So, some of us, we are not actually lit. We love our deeds, and we love the darkness. We are of the darkness. And, when Jesus speaks about being a light in the darkness, he clearly lays out two polar opposites. You are either adding to the light, or you are being part of the darkness. And that is very scary, to be part of the darkness. I understand, it's easy to just fade in the comforts of the flesh and of sin, but that is evil. That you cannot do that and remain a believer or call yourself a believer. Turning to Ephesians chapter 5. I want to read this real quick. This is what Paul says to believers. You were formerly darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of light consists in all goodness and righteousness and truth. trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord, do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead even expose them. For it is disgraceful even to speak of the things which are done by them in secret. But all things become visible when they are exposed by the light. For things that become visible is light. For everything that becomes visible is light. For this reason it says, "Awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine upon you." So, this is, Paul is claiming, speaking to Christians, people calling themselves Christians in the Ephesian church, and he is, accusing them, rebuking them. You call yourself a Christian. You show up here for Sunday service, for youth service. You sing songs, saying that you're glorifying God. And we say, let's stand and worship God. And if we're doing that hypocritically, we are walking a very dangerous path of self-deception. So he says, "Awake, sleeper, arise from the dead, so Christ will shine upon you." So, Christians, I'm not saying that if you have sinned, you're not a Christian. Christians can also have periods of darkness, can have, moments in life where they live in patterns of sin. I actually preached about that when preaching about David, his mire of sin, getting buried in sin and being closed off to the spirits. But I want us to encourage us. We need to rise out. We need to realize that there is no in between. We went through the series, no middle ground. We can't be a half light. We can't be a half salt. It doesn't make sense to be, I'm salty on some days, I'm not salty on others. It doesn't make sense. But, and that's not what God calls us for. So we strive, we battle sin, we battle this kind of apathy to the world, this kind of, it's easy to go and say, hey, I just want to live my life a day at a time, a moment at a time, and everything else, we'll figure it out as it comes. We need to rise to the occasion, rise to being salt and light. That is what Jesus calls us to be. And it's important. It's important because, we need a lot of light to light a room. Like, just look at this room. How many lights are there? There are a lot of lights. Imagine if there was one solitary light bulb above my head. This room would be pretty dark if there was one light bulb above my head. Or when you salt something, you don't take 2 or 3 grains, drop it, on your food, and man, well salted. That tastes delicious, I bet. No, that is impossible. It's not going to be light, and it's not going to be salty. God has called the church to be light and the church to be salty. Not, 3.5 missionaries going there and another missionary going there. I was surprised. Albert was talking today, and 3 missionaries in Afghanistan. 3 missionaries are there, and they're accomplishing so much. Yeah, it was unbelievable for me, the work that they're doing, God's work that they're doing. Obviously, not through their power, but through 3 people. Imagine if more of us rose to the occasion and were salt and light. But yeah, worship team can start coming up. So, what is the church? The church should not just be a place for us to gather and to chill, to catch up on what we're doing. The church should be a place for us to game plan, for us to come up and scheme for how to face the world, how to face the corruption and the darkness that is in the world. There is plenty for us to counter. There is so much work to do. And for us to kind of set it aside and say, hey, I'll get to it eventually. I'll be salt eventually. I'll be light eventually. That is missing the whole point of your existence on this earth, your whole existence of being a Christian. So I call us to rise out of the darkness and rise out of the corruption, to not be part of the darkness and the corruption, to be the salt and the light for this world that God needs us to be. Let's stand.